Coming up on Tri-Cities Community TV, host Hazel Postma and her guest Glynis Karpinsky discuss invasive species.
We acknowledge that Tri-Cities Community Television operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. We thank the Coquitlam who continue to live on these lands and care for them along with the waters and all that is above and below.
Hello, my name's Hazel Postma. I'm with Tri-Cities Community TV, and today we're down by the beautiful Coquitlam River, and my guest is Glynis Karpinsky, who is the Vice President of the Dogwood Gardening Club, and we're going to talk about invasive species. So Glynis, what exactly is an invasive species?
An invasive species is any plant or animal that's come from another geographical location or even another continent, and it's made its way into our forests and green zones, and the environment is really suitable for it, and then it starts to take over. So there's plant invasive species, and then we've also got some insects. But today I'd like to focus on the plants that are becoming a problem.
Right, and I see we're standing right next to a tree which has ivy growing up. It looks quite pretty, but you're telling me it's invasive.
Yeah, it is. I love ivy as well, and I've had it in my hanging baskets. And I've actually come into the same scenario when I first started gardening with old pots, throwing them into the greenbelt behind us, not realizing that I was contributing to this invasion of things like ivy. And there's one called a Lamiaceae or a lamia, and it is very common in hanging baskets, and people just pitch it in the green forest and it takes over as a ground cover. The ivy, you can see, starts to climb up, and it's got suckers on it, and it eventually can kill the tree. So you'll see in some areas, in Burnaby in particular, that it goes right up into the canopy. So it's not good to have. And when you look down on the ground here, you can see it's completely taken over from the native plants that should be here. It's all ivy.
That's killing the ferns as well, I see.
For example, right here we've got 3 invasive species that normally you would find in the garden. So here's holly, this one here. There's lamia, which is this one here. And there's one called periwinkle.
Does that have the beautiful blue flowers?
This has the beautiful blue flowers. So that's periwinkle, also very popular in people's gardens, but it's already starting to spread through here along with this lamia, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 holly bushes starting right in this small area here. So this is an example of what I'm talking about.
So this would explain why I saw in Port Moody the other day, the parks people had great big shears and they were cutting the ivy at the base of a lot of the trees around Rocky Point Park.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to get rid of all of the ivy that's invading and eventually will damage the trees. Okay. So they're saving the trees by cutting the ivy off down low.
So that's one way. You've explained that sometimes people who don't realize it, they're throwing their old planters and stuff. But what are some other ways that we get invasive species in our woods and forests?
Well, some of them, like holly, which is an invasive species, has berries that the birds love. Laurel is another one. So the birds eat the laurel, and then the droppings contain the seeds, and then they take off in the forest. So Invasive Species BC is asking you not to plant some of those different plants in your garden at all, so that they don't spread into the wilderness.
Right. And do our the nurseries and garden centers know this?
They do, and they're still sold, but there's usually warnings on them, and you need to keep them contained. So some of the plants that I'm talking about, this lamia and the ivy, are lovely in pots and baskets, but you have to control it. You cannot let it get loose into the riparian zone, and if you want to get rid of it, it goes in the garbage. The compost is often not strong enough the heat is not strong enough to kill them. So into the garbage if you're going to dispose of it.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. Now, the other week you were telling me that snowdrops are invasive too, and they are so pretty. It's like hard to believe that they could be considered invasive. They don't look harmful.
They don't. People look at the forest, and they look at the forest in England where they have fields of bluebells and snowdrops underneath.
Guilty?
Yeah, those are their native habitats. This is not the native habitat, and they will spread and they will take over, as pretty as they are. There's a kind of a movement of gardeners that we call it guerrilla gardening, where they will plant things in parks and green zones that shouldn't be there. So we're just asking people, please don't do that. Let the natural habitat take over, and that will support the local wildlife and the soil and everything else.
Right. So I could keep, say, snowdrops, or like holly, if in my garden, if they're contained. And then once they've had their time, I would need to put them in the garbage, not the recycling.
Correct.
So is there any place where invasive plants are okay apart from your garden?
Only in the garden, but one of the most common invasive species that everybody is so used to are Himalayan blackberries, and they're everywhere. And now there's sort of a debate. They've kind of naturalized here. They do provide shelter and they do provide food for the birds, but they're still very, very invasive. As you've seen on roadsides, they will just take over within a couple of years, and your native plants are no longer able to survive in that. So as a lover of blackberry jam, yes,
and I go searching every year for blackberries, is there an argument to be made that maybe we could adopt the Himalayan blackberry but just keep it perhaps not so rampant?
It's going to be one of those plants that we're never going to get control of. It's so well established. It's been here for so long. So enjoy your blackberries. Just don't plant any. But again, that's one that the birds spread. So it's very hard to contain once they come here.
So I suppose the issue with the blackberries would be they're crowding out salmon berries and the native berries.
Exactly. But they do provide food for all of the animals that eat berries. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And as I said, they've been here so long, they're really well established, and we'll never get rid of them.
Right. So tell me a little bit about Invasive BC, or did you say BC Invasive?
Yeah, there's some really good websites that you can go on to find out what plants are invasive, and they'll also give you alternatives to plant in your garden instead of the invasives. So bcinvasives.ca.
Perfect.
And they've got plants and animals that you can, like the insects, that you can look up and know what's invasive and what's not.
Thank you so much, Glynis. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you for enlightening me and hopefully our viewers on the invasive species. And I'll let you get back to your garden. I know you're very impatient.
Yes.
That's your nickname, the Impatient Gardener. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Thank you for viewing. This is Hazel Postma with Tri-Cities Community Television, and I hope to see you again soon.